currently is to the west. It's taken a little jog just off to the west. It was moving west-northwest. So currently, if you look at it here on our visible satellite, the eye wall has actually filled in a little bit. Usually, that's a sign of weakening as the eye wall kind of regenerates and has actually filled in a little bit. However, last check, it's actually strengthened. Pretty amazing stuff. We don't usually see this. This is not your typical storm right here. We know that. That's why we're tracking it so terribly closely. There's Ragged Island. Look at some of the winds. The waves, actually. This is 39-foot waves just to the north of the island. That's a 4-story building that's above the sea surface. So normal waves, normal tides. Above that, you've got 40-foot waves just about. Wave heights not exactly up quite yet out across southern Florida. They will be up, though, as the tropical storm force winds and eventually hurricane force winds get in there a little bit closer. Sea surface temperatures, these are extremely warm. 86 degrees. That's bathwater. 90-degree water temperature out across the northern Bahamas. This storm is not expected to weaken very much. Little shears going on, lots of warm water, and there's really nothing now in the path between that storm and southern Florida. We have hurricane warnings up for South Florida from West Palm all the way down to the Keys. Naples southward, hurricane watch is up north of that, and the storm surge is going to be significant. So those warnings are up to between 5 and 10 feet. Follow us on Roku. All that weather information right there at your fingertips.
Coming up next, local weather now.
Counterclockwise movement of the wind is also working for a combination effect. Easy to understand, but that's going to be tough to deal with. Chad, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good morning, everybody. Look, let's be real. Every inch of a hurricane is dangerous, and every hurricane is different. So let's take a moment and break down the anatomy of Irma, because with Irma, we have really got to focus on the winds and the storms.
Wind you see there is about 145, 150 miles per hour. Fortunately, Chuck's back up in a patio that's far enough out where I can do this without getting drenched.
Salve that way. So we're located near Elizabeth and the Palm, which is located next to the old hibiscus, you see. Drop it down. You got the whole way chair. You know what I mean? This is what's going on in the beach. Look at the sky. Clouds is dark. All that is it's just an empty beach. Okay. That's the land in the water. I will be inside of that building all hurricane because you can see people run home from right there. How am I there 2 hours away? How am I there like Buck Island right now? I mean, anybody live close? That's it. When you ain't kicking up, right? Checking the weather. Cleaning every fucking I think it's a joke. Wait till 12 o'clock come.
Peninsula. So you're going to end up with hurricane conditions on the west coast and on the east coast and near the core if it does go up the peninsula. There's also a significant risk of storm surge. That's what really drives the evacuation decision making in a state or in a locality. And so anybody who's at risk of storm surge, if they've been asked to evacuate, they should. The areas here that we have highlighted in dark pink are under a storm surge warning. There's a storm surge watch up in east central Florida. These are areas that are at risk of life-threatening inundation from storm surge from Irma that could, be 5 to 10 feet or even 6 to 12 feet above ground level here in areas of southwest Florida. So that's really a life-threatening hazard.
What are you looking at in terms of duration of exposure in different areas? I mean, one of the calculations is how long until the first responders can get out and help people, because 911, is just not the lifeline that it can be during the actual storm. So can you measure that? Like how long you'll have to put up with Irma, let's say in South Beach?
Well, what we can look at here is, oops, lost my screen here. What we can look at here is we can look at when the winds are most likely to start, and that's a really key important point because people need to get ready at a certain time. And in South Florida here, for example, it looks like Saturday during the day or into the evening is going to be that critical time to get ready. It looks like we'd be dealing with tropical storm conditions at least all the way through Sunday and then into Sunday night, perhaps Monday, with the hurricane conditions in that in the middle of that time period.
All right, Michael Brennan, I appreciate it. I know that you have to crunch all the numbers and put in the science just to get close on these, but the closer that the storm gets, the more accurate that all the predictions become. We'll check with you. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the information. So, what have we seen with Irma so far? We saw what it did coming through the Caribbean. This is a deadly storm. You have at least a couple of dozen lives that have been stolen by this storm through the British Virgin Islands, through the Caribbean. Now it's coming over Cuba, doing damage. They had to evacuate the whole northern shoreline of tourists there. We'll still learn what the devastation is that the storm brought to bear. So you would think that people in the Florida Keys, seeing what's coming their way across Puerto Rico, now Cuba, now towards them, that they would have taken flight first. Not the case. Bill Weir is in Key Largo. That's the key closest to the peninsula of Florida. Bill, what's the reality you're seeing there to this minute?
Actually, Chris, minor correction. We were in Key Largo this morning, but we came all the way down. Welcome to Key West. Welcome to the southernmost city of the United States. Welcome to the corner of Green and Duval Streets, which on an average Friday would be elbow to elbow with revelry, with tourists, with people catching beads and swilling boat drinks. But now we have just an occasional a bar back going to work. So see, that's the thing about the Florida Keys. you're never going to have a full mandatory evacuation in a place like this because it goes against the psyche of the people who come down and make their living in this place. There's a certain stubbornness, a certain sense of fierce individualism, but that doesn't mean they're not afraid. By this point, most of the people who wanted to leave have gone. That's about 2/3 of the 75,000 who call the Keys home. But we met a couple people with varying degrees of angst. Take a look.
Yeah, we hunkered down and we're staying. There's a lot of people that are staying.
Yeah?
Just mostly the tourists left.
Right.
I know a lot of locals are staying.
And what is it about a true native conch that makes you defy all those warnings and orders and makes you think you can survive something like this?
We've been through plenty of hurricanes. I know this one's a little bit bigger, but I'm sure we'll be all right.
I'm feeling confident about where I'm staying, and I'm just more worried, I think, the aftermath at this point. I grew up in the Chesapeake Bay and seen what some of the storms did up there and even nor'easters. So, and we're down here. I think we would be kind of the last to get supplies over Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and the bigger cities.
But also I can get that precise line that I love. And it looks good. There's no bumps.
Dr. Navarro, you can attest to the fact that storm surge is something we still need to be very concerned about here up along the Brevard County Space Coast.
Absolutely, John. Thanks so much. Yes, even if the
Yes, I've asked all moderators to block
storm surge, and obviously if we're under an evacuation, it's because that is being issued for your safety. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at what the current conditions are right now in Florida. You've heard them said just a little while ago. Any other day, it's hard to imagine that you have a hurricane off the coast because conditions here a little bit windy and a couple showers moving through, but we're not seeing anything yet with the likes of what this storm has caused along its path. Taking a look at the visible satellite imagery, here's Hurricane Irma right now. It's making its way just now to the west of the southern and central Bahamas, in between the Bahamas and Cuba, and it will continue that west-northwestward track through the next coming days or so. However, models are still showing that it's going to make this very sharp northward turn.